Hey guys, this is Doug again with fellowshipofthemartyrs.com. I'm wanting to comment a little bit again about this case about the International House of Prayer and this young lady that was murdered down in Grandview and the connectivity of it all. I'm reading from a blog that is at truthspeaker.wordpress.com. That's truthspeaker.wordpress.com. I'll put a link in the description of the video here on YouTube. And something really disturbing. Well, there's a whole bunch of really disturbing about this, but this is one of the things that I've talked about repeatedly as an issue with the International House of Prayer, and this is so egregious. I've got a video about David Eels and Unleavened Bread that is the same kind of thing. The complete, total disregard for pastoral confidentiality, and you know, for IHOP being so closely connected to Catholicism, you would think that somebody would have talked to them about priest confessional, privacy and secrecy. But anyway, this is a post on truthspeaker.wordpress.com. He's been following the story. I believe is here in town, and is a pastor who lost a big chunk of his congregation to IHOP. Anyway, on a post dated November 13th, which is yesterday, says police in Grandview seek help from IHOP in breaking case. He says, I received this email from an IHOP insider earlier today. Then he quotes this email. Apparently, investigators in Grandview contacted Alan Hood, who's the head of IHOPU, and other leaders at IHOPU, and informed them that they did not believe it was a suicide, but all their leads were cold. Okay, she was killed at the end of October, so we got about 2 weeks, give or take, where there was this investigation going on. The leadership at IHOP set up grief groups for everyone that knew Bethany and required them to attend. Their hopes were that during the sessions, someone would slip up or confess to wrongdoing. They were about to give up when Micah Moore began to talk. Police said that without the help of IHOP leadership, they would have closed the case. One other thing happened recently. In order to be a home group leader, you just sign up. If people want to go to your home group, they will. There has been no vetting up to this point, although I know now that is changing. Anyway, a girl that knew Tyler Deon saw his name on the list of home group leaders and freaked out. She contacted staff members and warned them about him. That information was immediately taken to the police. Anyway, leadership is changing the policy because of this. Anyway, that's all I know right now, but I have a very good source that is plugged right into leadership. I do know that Alan Hood is devastated that he taught some of these people so long without any red flags. Alan was quoted as saying yesterday during a specially called student assembly, if anyone, myself included, says you can't tell your parents about this, you need to run for the hills. Okay, well, good for Alan for being devastated and saying that, but IHOP in the past has told students, if your parents disagree with IHOP, you need to fast from talking to your parents indefinitely. So it's kind of a little late and, whatever. But there's also in a new post from today, Friends of Bethany Deon looking for answers. It states that according to the International House of Prayer's own handout, dated 11/04, that's 10 days ago, by IHOP-KC friendship groups, Tyler Deon is listed as a division coordinator. This has since been taken down. If indeed Tyler Deon operated as a home fellowship division coordinator for IHOP, how is it that IHOP is stating that Deon was the leader of a completely independent group? You can't have it both ways, Alan Hood. There are people out there who are looking for answers. This comment came in. Okay, so let me separate issues here. The first is, I sent my dad an email because he is lifelong minister, has a doctorate in ministry, a D-Min. He was a faculty member at seminaries and taught pastoral counseling and pastoral ethics and all kinds of stuff. He and I disagree on a few things, but I know him to be a man of integrity, and I know him to have very high standards as it relates to the role and the office. He has been a county or citywide director of ministries for associations of congregations. He's counseled lots of pastors that have fallen into sin and congregations that have split and all kinds of stuff. I sent him this quote, and I said, what do you think about this? Because this just makes me want to throw up. And he read the article, the original article, and this thing that I just read you. He said, that's crazy stuff. Yes, I'm surprised the police asked or even cooperated with a religious organization conducting a grief session as a guise for trying to get a confession. That would certainly seem to violate the confidentiality of priest-parishioner confessions. I would think IHOP will have a huge PR problem at the very least over this. I think any prosecution of the case would be crippled by the confession coming in the guise of a religious meeting. If that happened in a natural way, it might hold water, but since it was prearranged by the religious leaders and required to attend, and the police, it seems suspect. Anyway, it is an ugly and sorry blotch on the name of Christ. I hope the church can do positive work sufficient to overcome the damage. I'm not sure how much positive work it requires, but this is a gross violation. If it happened the way that this email that's posted on this blog says that it went, that they set up grief support groups and that they required anyone that knew her to attend in the hopes of getting a confession, ramping up emotion so that somebody would say something. Did they videotape these grief support groups? Did they have police undercover in plain clothes in the grief groups? Did they let people know that they had some expectation of privacy? What's said in this room stays in this room, knowing full well all along that what they were going for was trying to get somebody to slip up and confess. This is gross. I mean, gross pastoral abuse, negligence, and it is so CYA, cover your whatever. It is okay. I'm all for a murder being solved. I'm all for flushing up to the surface who's guilty. But is it the church's job to operate on behalf of the police? Is it the church's job to gather information in a religious meeting to turn that information then over to the police who can prosecute a crime? Are you not an extension of the state when you operate on behalf of the police to solve a crime like this? I have to believe that there were other ways to encourage the students to say what they knew, to have more interviews, to talk to more kids. Somebody knew something, and those people could have been questioned by the police instead of this fake sham of an effort to get a confession through manipulation, guilt, whatever. And it worked. Micah broke, started saying stuff. I'm sure the police jumped in and grilled him some more. And it looks like big win for IHOP. They flushed this thing out of the woodwork. But the way they did it is a gross violation of pastoral confidentiality and should have a humongously chilling effect on anybody that thinks that anything they say in private, in confidential situations with any counselor, any pastor, any leader at IHOP, anybody that thinks that is actually confidential should question whether this organization can be trusted at all. I know that I've dealt with this with other groups. I've got a video about David Eels and unleavened bread, because regularly they will encourage people to confess everything they've been through in their life. Well, before I was a Christian, I had an abortion, I did this, I was on drugs, but whatever. I looked at pornography. Okay, when they leave the organization or turn on them, all of that's fair game. Publicly, on websites, on radio shows, you can say whatever you want. Well, she's a whore. She used to sleep around and got pregnant when she was 16 and had an abortion. It's all fair game now, even though it was spoken in a counseling session with pastoral confidentiality implied. It's all fair game once that is ethically counter to the most atheistic, secular counselor psychologist knows. You don't get to do that. Oy. Okay. Now, one of the other questions you need to ask is why this group, it says, again, from truthspeaker.wordpress.blog. Friends of Bethany Deaton are looking for answers. According to the email I received yesterday from a college friend of Tyler and Bethany Deaton, people who knew them were shocked, hurt, and confused. This friend confirmed what was on the police report, that Tyler Deaton had been a self-styled leader of a charismatic Christian group while he was a student at Southwestern University in Texas, and that some members of this group relocated with him to Kansas City to attend IHOP. According to my source, there were some who found Tyler creepy, and they visited his meetings at SU in order to discover what was going on there. This is the quote from his email. There are several of us who didn't trust the group at face value, but remained close to them because they were either involved in our religious fraternity sorority or were friends with them. They never excluded anyone, but we definitely felt their distinctness. If you belonged, you knew. We joined several activities, prayer sessions, worship nights, Bible studies, etc., in order to investigate why we felt so disturbed by the group. Unfortunately, nothing ever happened, and our suspicions remained unfounded. There was never any evidence they were actually dangerous." End quote. This source also confirmed Tyler and his group were obsessed with IHOP. Quote, "Other than their language, extremely influenced by IHOP teachings, they were little more than obsessed with the place. We couldn't explain why we were so uncomfortable with the group." End quote. According to the information, now he's going on to talk. According to the information, the police report, Tyler's group had relocated to Kansas City to attend IHOP and evolved into a religious community that had turned into a sex cult where homosexual sex was an ongoing event that was kept secret from his wife. Now, it's come out for a fact that the person that put Micah up to killing Bethany Deaton was in fact her husband Tyler Deaton. So the charges are forthcoming on his responsibility in this, and probably other people involved in the whole thing. The police are encouraging people to come forward with any information they have, that it's an ongoing investigation. And even though Micah is the one that confessed and is the only one charged at the moment, everybody needs to not leave town, because they're all kinds of stuff's brewing. At some point, the men in the group began to drug and sexually abuse Bethany Deaton, which ultimately led to her murder as a cover-up to the sex. One of the members of Tyler's church group told police that Tyler Deaton was controlling and manipulative, and stated that the sexual activity was part of the religious experience. Okay, so IHOP says that he was the leader of an independent, close-knit religious group that operated separately from the International House of Prayer under a veil of secrecy. But they also show him as a division coordinator of home groups. So you can't really play it both ways. And the question that people need to ask themselves is why? What is it about IHOP that made this an attractive place for this group, for this guy? Why did they believe that something was in tune, was in harmony, they could hide there? What was it about IHOP's language or theology that resonated with them or that played a part in this. Now, I understand that some of the language that I talk about resonates with people when I talk about the need to pound the altars into chalk stones and to reform this thing we call churchianity, Christianity, and into what it's supposed to be in the biblical model. I understand that there are people that are really hurt by the church that gravitate sometimes to that, and that may go beyond the sort of nonviolent spiritual resistance that I'm suggesting into something larger. And I have to be careful to moderate my language and to make sure that I'm telling people, no, that's not what I mean when I, and does IHOP equally try to moderate when they talk about Jesus, kissing me with the kisses of your word? Are they making guys effeminate, homosexual? Is there undertones of sexuality with Jesus that get mixed in there? I understand that sexuality is a spiritual experience on some level, that within a marriage it's supposed to be a religious experience, that you ought to play worship music and enjoy it as unto the Lord, and that spiritually things break whenever love is expressed in the correct context of God's model. I understand that spiritually it breaks things, but there's another level that people are talking about that gets it into some sort of smarmy, weird thing where you're not really married to your wife, you're really married to Jesus, and she's a surrogate for your relationship with it's just there's a line that if you cross, it gets into something else altogether weird and different. And the really hard thing is some people don't want to get anywhere near that line. We don't want to get anywhere near that line, but that's where the deep things are. That's where the wisdom of God is. If you cross that line, then you're into something altogether different. The really hard thing is to approach that line, and as soon as you get close to that line, the people over here are going to say, "Oh, you're already over that line," because to them that line is much anyway. So there is truth, and the closer you get to that line, the more you're going to be maligned by the people over here. And the danger is constantly to hug up on the narrow path without flopping over into the Broadway on either side. And the Christian walk is a sidewalk that narrows down to a rope, that narrows down to a razor blade, and alligators are on either side. A death of one sort or another on every side. And when you're walking that razor blade, seeking the truth, having to get over these obstacles, what do we do about what should church look like? Well, we're good on everything except we're going to go back to a clergy model where top-down leadership and everybody sits and listens to me. Okay, well, you blew it. Well, what about money? How do we handle money? How do we handle the gifts of the Spirit? How do we handle marriage? How do we handle all of these things? Where is the right way, knowing that Satan has got his fingers in everything on both sides, and that there is a narrow path down the middle that is truth. But anytime somebody's trying to walk that narrow path and work through some of the hard questions, there are risks and there are dangers, and people can get really twisted up real fast, particularly if they make it about them. Now, the big problem with Tyler Deon and this group is that they look to man. They listen to him. He was controlling. According to my book, he's got a red dragon. He is chasing something other than the cross of Christ. In this case, it looks like a whole bunch of sex with whoever he can talk into it. And he believes he's doing it unto the Lord. I don't know his heart. I haven't talked to the guy. Maybe he's just flat up knows what he's doing and has no sense. It's just a cover. Jim Jones used religion, hated the Bible, but he knew that it would help him out to get control. And but he was in fact a communist, not a Christian, and hated God, hated the Bible, hated Jesus. But he would use it for his purposes to get what he wanted. And so, is this a sincerely deluded person who thinks they're doing it for God, or is this just a sham that's just a horny guy that's using whatever to get people to do whatever? I don't know. Either way, it's a red dragon. Either way, it's a delusion that you think somehow you're going to get away with this and God's not watching. But is it fundamentally different? Is it fundamentally different than the same top-down, listen to the guy up front leadership structure model that IHOP's been following all along? I'm constantly trying to get people to listen to God. Don't listen to me, even if you're here. Okay, I've got some responsibility to handle the bills, to create an environment where people can hear God. But I'm not trying to create an environment where they have to watch my videos, they have to read my books, they have to listen to me. And a lot of people here have never watched one of my videos, and there's no urgency for them to do that. The point is, my job as a shepherd is to create an environment where the sheep can flourish, where they can grow, where they can eat the green pasture, get to the water safely. I beat the wolves off to protect them as best I can, but they still have to make choices. And if they wander off and jump off a cliff, I can't always catch every single one of them, nor so it's a fundamental difference between standing behind them and shoving them toward God or drawing men unto you. And this is a whole bunch of people are finding out that listening to man is a real bad idea. Again, I'd encourage people to consider carefully, what was it about the International House of Prayer that made these people think this was a good place for them to come? I can't imagine a scenario under which 15 or 20 people could move here with us in this townhouse complex, living 24/7 in close proximity, and hide something like this. How you would think that moving here and being a part of what's going on in Liberty is somehow going to that you could keep this secret. But IHOP's big enough, you could hide and recruit and find maybe people that were wired in the same direction. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got for now. I want to call the International House of Prayer and Alan Hood. If this email is correct, that you set up grief support groups and required kids to come in the hopes of getting a confession and giving it to the police to use against them, you do not understand confidentiality. You do not understand pastoral privilege. You do not understand priest-parishioner relationships. And you need to say you're sorry, because you are eroding any trust, any faith that anybody should have in you guys as leadership. This is fundamental to a role as a shepherd and as a counselor, as anybody that's going to make a difference in somebody's life. And this is bad. This is bad. I think it's a good time for everybody to look real hard at what they've built and decide, whether this is really glorifying God or whether what this is. Thanks for listening. May the Lord Jesus Christ lead us all into the fullness of His truth, even if it hurts. Amen.